You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn to joy. Today's saint, St. Phillip Neri, was known for his joy, for his laughter, for perhaps his circus tricks. At times, and he wrote about this and spoke about this during his life, that at times people revere the priest so much, that they identify the priest so much with Christ that they then lift the priest to such a high level, almost beyond what should be reasonable. And he said this is wrong. And we've seen this even in our own lifetimes. This can easily happen, I think, where we lift the priest so much up. We talk about the priest with our theology being in the person of Christ when we act during the sacraments. But the challenge of Phillip Neri is that people then inflated priests so much, that they revered them so much that they were almost like God. And he said, no, this is not going to happen. He said people should have joy when they're around a priest, not be fearful as to, oh, what am I saying, and so on. So he was known for bringing laughter. He said, yes, when we're in the church, we're called to worship God. But he says outside the church, we should be known for our joy, for our laughter, in so many different ways. And he gave sometimes the weirdest of penances to people in confession, so that they didn't become too proud in themselves. He did this to seminarians, priests, but many lay people as well. In Rome, where he came from Florence originally, he came down to Rome and started this community called the Oratory, where priests from different backgrounds, different roles would live together in a city, and then they would go out serve parishes or schools or hospitals, and then they'd come back and have a common life. They weren't quite religious. They were a bit like diocesan priests, but living a community life. So one of these weird penances he gave, I'll tell you a couple of them he did. One is that he told a man who was particularly proud and a bit egotistical, he said, well, I want you to pick up this cat. I want you to walk around town with the cat, because people will think you're weird. And if you think your reputation's so good, well, people will think you're a little bit weird, and that will bring some humility for you. So that was his penance for one guy. Another time he was known in confession, in spiritual direction to someone, the person was getting all a bit intense, and he needed to smile and have a bit of a laughter. So Philip, with his acrobatic skills, decided to just stand on his head. Puts himself up, and he's there on the top of his head, a headstand. Pretty unusual for a priest. He wanted to remind people, we don't want to take ourselves too seriously, even the priests. Let's know that we are all in this together. I think this is a great reminder for us all. He was known for developing new forms of spiritual prayer as well. The oratory musical style developed from St. Phillip Neri, and a lot of musicians at that time in the 16th, 17th century developed this oratory style where there was music accompanied with scripture passages, and it became a form of a liturgy. It wasn't the liturgy of the church, but it was a spiritual experience, and there was many composers from that area who developed the oratory style. He was also known for fashion and other things as well, and encouraging people not to be too ostentatious. So I think this is a good reminder for us all. We want humility. If we're getting some pride in our lives, let's be humble. And that applies to me, it applies to our bishops, but it applies to all of us. And Philip was known for reminding people to be joyful and to be humble. And I think that's a great reminder for us all. He was very significant in forming and helping prepare students in Rome who went back to England during the time of Elizabeth I. And during that time, more than 40 young priests were martyred for the faith. And they'd been in Rome preparing, and Phillip Neri helped prepare them, and then they went back to England, and many of them, more than 40, were martyred for the faith. So he was known for both his joy, but also for truly preparing people to be saints in great heroic ways. So let's be heroic in our joy, in our humility, and in our service of Christ and others today and in the future. St. Philip Neri,